So I'm just starting off now by cleansing Edna's skin, and I'm using the This Works Evening Detox Cleansing Water. Even though it's called Evening Detox, I actually love using this in the day because it's slightly exfoliating, so just make sure you get a really well cleansed base and gets rid of all dead skin cells, so it's perfect to kind of start your makeup routine. So it's really important not to overload the skin with product, especially when it's hot outside, because you don't want your makeup sliding off, but also you want to make sure that you still moisturize and wear an SPF. So I love combining the two, and I'm using now a moisturizer which is by Bliss. It's got an SPF of 33 in it, and it's really hydrating. So I'm just giving that a really good massage into the skin, and that's going to act also as a protective barrier against UV rays and also antioxidant protection alongside. So love a multi-purpose product like that. So days that are hot are really when primers can come into their own. So today I'm using this Dior Universal Primer, and this one really is a universal primer in that you can use it on all skin types, and actually it's really great on its own without makeup if you're using it for male grooming. So I'm just popping a little bit of that on Edna's skin now, using a brush just to be a little bit more precise with my applications so that we don't get too much product in hairline or brows. And this is just going to create a barrier between moisturizer and foundation that will keep everything really smooth and even and just on the skin all day long. So next up I'm using this beautiful foundation which is from D&G. It's called Perfect Reveal Lift Foundation, and I've gone for shade number 75, which is called Bisque, because Edna's skin doesn't have a lot of natural kind of pinkness to it, and actually this is a really beautiful tone that kind of doesn't have that any kind of red or pinkness, so it's going to look really, really natural and sheer on the skin. It's also a beautiful kind of sheer, luminous texture that you can build up if you want a little bit more coverage, or you can leave super sheer so that we get to see these gorgeous little freckles through. So now I'm going to do some bronzing using the Dr. Hauschka bronzing tint. I've used bronzing tints in my tutorials a lot before, and I absolutely love using them because they almost act like a stain on the skin, which means that if you're prone to touching your face a lot like I am, or you want longevity in the heat or at work, then they're the perfect way to kind of give a bronzed glow. And now for concealer, I'm using this beautiful brand called Ilia, which kind of make vegan and really clean beauty products that work well too. I'm just dotting a little bit of that under eyes. This concealer shade has a little bit more warmth in it compared to Edna's skin tone, which really helps to balance out any of the kind of natural blueness that we find under the eyes. So I'm just putting a very light layer of that and buffing that in with a little fluffy brush. The blush I'm going to use is also from Ilia. It's actually a multi-purpose matte pigment that you can use on eyes, cheeks and lips. I'm just going to use it on the cheeks now, and just with the same brush that I applied that bronzing tint, just kind of going back over the top and patting that into the skin. And it kind of starts off with this dewy finish, but then it does set slightly more matte and really lasts quite well. Also love the applicator. It comes with this little metal applicator, which actually I find is really hygienic to use because you can kind of just wipe it clean. But I love how this kind of gives that natural glow from within. I love how that looks so much. I'm actually going to go back over the top and layer another layer just to give us a bit more intensity of colour. So gorgeous, this. I'm going to set the skin now, and I'm using some of this Dior powder. It's called Forever and Ever Control. So it's lightly mattifying. I'm just using a little brush. This one is from Navel Cosmetics. Just using this to dust a little bit of product just in the center of the face. And then I'm going to leave everything on the skin for a little while, go onto the eyes, and then we'll come back and finish the skin afterwards, which gives the skin a chance to settle and for you to see exactly where needs maybe a little bit more blush or a little bit of glow, or especially a little bit of powder. For eyes, I'm using a NARS Tinted Smudge Proof Shadow Base in the shade Dark. And although I think this was originally intended for darker skins, I think it's a great shade to use on fairer skins to create kind of like a warm, smoky eye. So I really love keeping the products that I use to a minimum, if I want longevity. So actually I'm just kind of using this product like I would an eyeshadow. I'm just pressing this now all over the lids, and then I'm gonna blend it afterwards just to give us kind of this really softly diffused warm smokiness. And that is literally the shadow primer on its own, and it looks so gorgeous. I'm just going to take that same product a little bit under the eyes, which just helps balance the shape a little bit. But I love the fact that not only this gives us this warm smoky look, but it just stays so well too. So Edna has beautifully almond shaped eyes, and I really want to emphasize this shape with a bit of liner. So if you just look down for me instead of close. The reason I'm asking Edna to look down is because then you get a much kind of smoother lid to work on. Whereas if you close your eyes and then do a liner, then you'll often find you open them and your liner is not as straight as you thought. So just in kind of little movements, I'm taking a Delilah gel liner and a really fine art brush, and I'm just following kind of the natural shape of the eye, but just with a little added thickness in the outer corners that just brings that wing slightly higher. And I always like to start in the outer corner and then go really close to the lash line and work my way right into the inner corner. So now that line is on, I really want to kind of emphasize and extend the shape of the eyes. So just with a little angle brush and a dark brown shadow, I'm just going in the outer corners underneath the eye, almost kind of joining up to that liner on the top, which is just going to kind of extend the eyes and define the shape in a softer way than using a liquid or a pencil. So now just with a little blending brush and a slightly lighter shade of shadow, I'm going over the top of that, which is just going to kind of soften that line so that it looks like a kind of smoky diffuse shadow rather than a liner. And also helps us to kind of extend this wing shape a little bit further but still keep it soft. So just a little trick now which really helps eyes to look wide and extended without looking overly made up. I'm just taking that little angle brush and a bit of that shadow and just popping a little bit of darkness just in the inner corner underneath here. So that really helps to kind of give us the continuation of that almond shape. So I know we concealed earlier, but I'm going to use a tiny bit more of that concealer, almost like an eraser, just to make sure that no shadow is dropped under the eyes and that everything is really clean. So it kind of saves you having to waste cotton buds. You can use concealer in this way. Lashes are going to make such a big difference to this look, so I want to make sure that they are really thoroughly curled. I'm just using the Surratt Beauty Lash Curlers now, and giving that a few squeezes. And a little tip for the perfectly curled lash is if you start at the base of the lash and then you do it a second time a little bit closer to the tip, then what that means is that you get a nice bend to your lashes rather than kind of like a 180-degree angle. So I've popped some mascara on. This is Elizabeth Arden's Grand Entrance Mascara, which looks amazing on Edna's gorgeous lashes. But just to give them a little bit of extra oomph, I'm using some corner lashes. These are Swede collaboration with By Terry. And I just popped a little bit of duo adhesive on the base of the lash. And I'm just popping these just in the outer corner of the eye, and this is just going to really help to further extend that shape. So a little tip when doing false lashes to get them really natural looking is just to get a little bit of your liner and go back over the top of the root, kind of the base of the lashes, just to make sure that you're covering that glue. And the same goes even if you're using black adhesive, just because it reflects light in a different way to liner. So it will always look more natural if you've had a little bit of liner over the top. Now I'm going to transform Edna's brows, but because they're quite sparse, we're going to do this in a little bit of a different way to how I normally do. I've sprayed a little bit of fixing spray into my soap brows, and then actually with a flat brush rather than a spoolie, I'm just going over the top of Edna's natural brow. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sure not just the brow hairs but also the surrounding skin is coated in a little bit of product, and this almost behaves like a wax, which allows any product that we use afterwards something to stick to, so you get more of kind of a natural texture throughout the brows. So I've given that soap a little bit of a chance to set, and then I'm just going back over the top of that with a finger And that is just to make sure that I'm sticking the hairs down to the skin and that they're all facing the right direction. I'm going to use some of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow Gel, but instead of using it with the little spoolie it comes with, I've just put a little bit on my hand, and then with a little angle brush, I'm just taking some of the product. And I find that using this rather than brush really flat and narrow just allows you to get very thin hair-like strokes. So I'm just putting those in now to give Edna's brows a little bit more definition, shape, and create this kind of bushy effect. So one brow is done, and I'm just finishing the other one now. I think the secret, if you really want to transform sparse brows into kind of a little bit more dense, fuller looking brows, is to still try and keep the texture of that hair throughout. And that way you can really sort of do as much or as little as you want, but you keep the brow looking natural and real. So a little tip to really keep brows looking natural is you want to keep this area at the top of the brow a little bit more, a little bit less dense. So you want to kind of see those natural gaps that you'd get in between hair there. So these little cotton buds are from NIKKI, and they're super tiny. So they're really good for kind of going back in and removing any excess product that you don't need or want. To finish skin, I'm going to highlight now, and I'm going to use this Charlotte Tilbury highlighting wand. Really beautiful. It comes with this little sponge applicator. Putting a little bit just on a brush and just pressing just at the top of the cheekbones. I believe it just comes in one shade, this, but it's probably one of the most universal shades that I've found. It looks good on so many different skin tones and really creates kind of a glossy looking glow. So I'm just brushing that over the top of cheekbones and any other little places that I want to highlight, like tip of the nose, just in the middle of the bridge of the nose here, and a little bit on Cupid's bow. Edna actually has some really beautiful natural freckles, so I'd just like to enhance what she has naturally. And I'm using a product called Freck, which is a little kind of almost mini, like an eyeliner almost, but it's a really realistic colour for freckles. So what I'm doing is I'm just dotting randomly over the top of cheekbones here, and I'm going to give that product a chance to almost oxidize and dry, and then once that is on, just with the finger, I'm just going to go back over the top and press that, and what that does is the finger picks up a little bit of the product and helps to replicate that kind of natural. I'm going to do a couple of those just across the bridge of the nose too. And actually I really love to put a little one or two just here. I think this is such a pretty place to have little beauty spots. And now for lips, I'm using a liner by Melt Cosmetics in the shade Foxy. Such a good kind of nudie brown, this shade. And I'm using the pencil just to go very, very slightly kind of at the outer edge and slightly over Edna's natural lip shape. This is why I love lip liners. They just really help you to create whatever shape you like. So when lining your lips to create the most natural looking shape, I always like to keep the overlining a little bit more prominent than the center of the mouth, and also keep the shape of the Cupid's bow quite close together, if that makes any sense, rather than leaving a big gap in the middle, because you'll find that the closer and higher your Cupid's bow, the more feminine the shape of your pout. Also with that liner, I'm just kind of colouring in the outer part of the mouth, because that's going to give us a very subtle ombre nude, because I'm going to go in the centre with a lighter shade of nude lipstick. So this is a KKW Beauty lipstick in the shade 2.5 Nude. She's made some really gorgeous nudes, and I love this one because it's especially peachy. So I'm just kind of pressing this mostly in the centre of the mouth. And then I'm going to use a brush afterwards just to help blend the lipstick and liner together. But this is a really gorgeous shade, and actually perfect match with the eyes. So the benefit of using a brush also is if you don't have a steady hand to get that nice clean lip line, you can go slightly over with a brush and that just gives you kind of more of a diffused line, which is a lot easier. So now to just finish the look, I'm using a little bit of this Rhodial Banana Powder, and just with a small brush I'm just going to make sure that all of the areas that we want to be matte are. So that's mostly in the center of the face. I think especially here shouldn't be shiny art. And then Edna is fully done and she looks so beautiful. Thanks so much for today.
Thank you, Meg.
Hi, thank you so much for passing by. I hope I got your interests by clicking subscribe to this channel.